started. We like to try to start around 2 o'clock. So I just got a couple of opening remarks that I wanted to make, because the majority of the meeting is, you can see, is all set up for District Attorney's Office to do quite a presentation and give us some information. I think they have about 100 people here, so they'll probably take up the first row at least. How many people in this room, first time you've been here? Okay, so some newbies. Good, that's kind of what it's all about. We'd like to see more repeat faces, but it just depends on the day of the week and time of the day and what people's schedules are like. But it's pretty interesting to see how many new people hear about the Merchants Crime Watch group and come to listen to what we've put together over the past 4 years. And it doesn't seem like it's been 4 years that we've been dealing with the issues of crime in Reading, but it's been 4 years, and I've learned a lot. So I'm Ed Rollman, for those of you who don't know me. Just a couple of things. I wanted to get it out because we have been really kind of negligent about getting the next upcoming meeting scheduled before we have this meeting. We sort of set it up where it's kind of a as-needed basis. So I've been asked by several groups that want to come and talk to us if we could kind of set the meetings ahead of time. So what I'll at least try to do is give you an idea of the next upcoming meeting, which I have scheduled for May 17th. So for those of you who have your phones with you, or if you're old-fashioned and still write it on a calendar, mark May 17th at 2 o'clock. And I'm also kind of negligent sometimes to thank the Red Lion for what they do for us. Mitch is relatively new to the community. He's been back in Reading after a stint back in the 80s. He's new to the Reading area. Mitch, raise your hand up there. He's the new general manager here at the Red Lion. And the Red Lion has been really gracious, and they host us, they give us cookies and coffee, and I don't think I've ever called here where they didn't find a date, an opening for me to be able to put this meeting together. So Mitch, thanks, and tell your staff thanks for all the energy they put into this, because it's important as a community that we have partners like that to be able to provide information to the masses. The one thing I wanted to do today was talk to you a little bit about the importance of this group, and hopefully you'll leave today and you'll go out and you'll spread the message. You'll spread the message hopefully to people who've been here in the past and say, hey, you need to come back. You'll go and spread that message to new people, and what you need to tell them is, look, as a community, we're going to make a difference. How many people out there think we have a crime problem in Reading? All right, so that's why you're here. So the idea behind this group is to be able to communicate to each other and talk to each other about those issues, so that you don't feel like you're out on an island dealing with the situation all by yourself. I've had people say, I thought that was a problem, but I just didn't complain about it or say anything because I didn't know anybody cared. And I think that the one thing I've learned in this whole process over the 4-year period is there's a lot of people in our community that do care. The unfortunate part about it is we all get busy, we all get complacent, and we forget to communicate those things maybe that the neighbor needs to know about that's going on, so that we can maybe react, be proactive instead of reactive. So we've designed a website, and for those of you who have not used our website, it's readingcrimewatch.com. It's in my computer. I start typing it, and the rest of it types for me. So, and Matt Morgan is the guy that put that together. Matt's going to be speaking to you in just a few minutes because he has a project that he's been working on. But it's really important that you get on that computer, that website, and go to the business tab and report things that are happening at your businesses or your homes or just in the community in general. If you see something, hey, I saw 2 guys snatch a purse and run east on Cypress Avenue. So as a group because it's informative and it helps us make a difference in our community. We've grown from being a bunch of people in a room complaining about what's going on to a bunch of people now that hopefully are helping to educate people in our community. Like today, you're going to hear some things from the district attorney's office that you might not know. And we have had many speakers that have come here and talked to us, and I've walked away and I went, wow, I'm a whole lot better informed than I was when I walked in. And I'm the kind of guy that thinks he knows everything, but I found out I really don't. So thanks for coming. It's a tight schedule. Lucky and his crew, I don't know how long it's going to take them. I didn't leave a lot of stuff on the backside if there's a lot of questions. But if we get done early, the chief has the town hall presentation that he'd like to go through, some slides. For those of you who want to stay and didn't get to see it at the town hall meeting, he brought his zip drive and he's ready to go. So that'll be after the meeting is adjourned toward the end of the meeting. And Matt has a brief thing he wants to go over with you. About 3 minutes. Come on up. Okay. So we're going to let Matt do his thing, and then Terry, you still want to do your little presentation, or you want to wait? Wait.
See if I can hijack Lucky's computer here. Lucky, you got anything on your desktop?
No.
Nice of you to ask me.
UVH.
Okay, so a few months back, see if I can get this bigger here. A few months back, I proposed an anti-panhandling sign, kind of as an addition to the poster we used to have 3 or 4 years ago. It came out, that handouts don't help poster, and I wanted to kind of build on that and find the hot spots where panhandling is occurring, and come up with a sign that would encourage people as they're passing by to get a little education and understand that maybe contributing to them directly isn't the best choice, and maybe to donate to your local charity instead. I wanted to make it a positive thing and not a criminalizing the panhandlers type of an approach. So I showcased this a few months back and just wanted your guys' feedback. And the feedback was that it needs to be much more blunt and just no panhandling. So we went back to the drawing board. And so we came up with the traditional backslash signage. It's really clear from, it's an obvious sign, no panhandling. But at the same time, we're still offering that call to action to donate. We're going to do that through a text to donate option, so that when you're pulling up to the stop sign, you see the panhandler and you see that sign up above them, you have the option, hey, I can still give to this guy, just in a different way. And so this is the new design we're going to run with, and we're going to pilot it. We've got approval from the Safeway on Cypress and Churn Creek. We're going to try a couple of spots right there, give it a whirl. My roadblock right now is finding a fiscal agent to handle the donations. Ed and I we don't have time to deal with that, so we need somebody to accept those donations and then distribute it to our local charities and make sure we can trust that. So I was working with United Way to see if they would handle that, and they respectfully declined taking that on. And so if any of you have any ideas of somebody who might be able to handle those donations and manage that process, we can get the signs printed or made, pop them up, and see how they do. Does anybody have any questions with that sign or any feedback?
Did you tie it right to a GoFundMe bank or directly to a bank account?
Probably the issue is who's going to manage the bank. I don't want to manage that. So if somebody wants to take that on, that's really what I'm looking for, is somebody to take on the actual management of the funds. It could be a GoFundMe page, could be a fiscal agent. So I guess that's where I'm asking you guys, if you guys have any ideas, you can look me up on the ReadingPrimeWatch.com website, fill out that contact form. I'll get those responses, or email me directly. That's where we're at on this project.
Matt, can we adopt, like if we wanted to support something like that, can we help pay for the sign?
Yes, so we're just running with 2 signs to start at that Safeway, but by all means we want to run this in other locations and see how it works. And of course it's just a grassroots type of a thing, so somebody's paying for the bill, they're not very expensive. So I think if you buy like 1 sign, it's like $45, but if you buy like 10 signs, it's like $15 a sign. So they're really not expensive. So that would be great if you wanted to help with another location. Donations would be welcome for the actual purchase of the signs. Dale Ball is offered to be the one who installs it. Cool. Any question?
Yeah, just one suggestion on what the idea of the concept. However, the stuff may be a prospective problem in the future. Whoever you do have in charge of that, have a real signature on any checks that go out. And
Yeah, I think
stop anything that's going to happen.
we definitely want to vet that fiscal agent, and we also have the website that's going to be updated at the bottom of the sign where people are really curious, well, where is this money going? The information will be on that website that'll have those details. All right, thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Matt. And I have been in contact with the chamber to see if maybe they will help us facilitate that a little bit. So
That's great.
just haven't gotten very far yet. I wanted to bring up just one thing. I know Terry doesn't want to get and speak about it today, but I was approached by Terry and Rich the other day. Raise your hand, Terry, Rich. They have a program in downtown that is a neighborhood watch program that they've extended down into the business area because part of their neighborhood extends into where the business kind of meets the neighborhood. And they've gotten some real good energy going. And it got us to thinking, we had a meeting one day about maybe taking this group and talking to certain people in certain sections of Reading that have problems going on, like, you know, you might have somebody on Eureka Way, you might have somebody up on Lake Boulevard, and form sort of a smaller subgroup that is still active in this group. But on Hilltop, I'm sort of the Hilltop guy. I'm one of the owners of the Best Western down the street. And so Hilltop and Churn Creek, when I see things going on, I get pretty active in trying to fix those problems just because that's where I do business. You know, commerce is commerce, and you know, it's like, you know, Matt talking to Safeway. They want to eliminate problems in that area there. So if we could get, you know, I don't know if the city needs to be broken into 15, 20 sections, but if we could get some smaller core groups that would do something similar to that and have a person that was sort of, you know, the person in charge, the person that kind of gets the ball rolling, I think this group could be even more successful. So I want to plant that seed because the next meeting we have, I'm gonna make sure she wants to get up and speak. I think she's got some great ideas, and I think by the time next meeting comes around, we'll have some real good information. But how many people would be interested in doing something like that? Is that something that you would be interested in helping with? Okay, so a few hands, great. And just remember, go out and recruit some more people so we have plenty of people out there on the streets to help us do it. It's kind of like starting a neighborhood watch program in your neighborhood, but we're going to do it for businesses and just get a little tighter so that we can get more information out. Any questions? Okay, Lucky, I'm going to give, you guys want to come up and do your presentation? I know there's several speakers, so let's just see what you guys have for us today. Thanks.
All right, well, my name's Stephanie Bridget. I'm the Chief Deputy District Attorney, and I'm here just kind of to introduce our group. We have a great group, our consumer protection and environmental protection team, who also handle our real estate fraud. You know, they're the ones that worked tirelessly to bring the Reading Inn case and get that resolved. We're all very happy about the way that that's included. And we've got a great presentation put together for you today. We've got our Senior Deputy District Attorney, Lucky Jezrani, who handles the prosecutions. We've got our investigator, Mike Baxter, and we also have another investigator who works, Joe Hendricks. He really wanted to be here today, but he is headed down to a training on this very topic, so we want him to go to that so he can do an even better job. And then we've also got Angie Mellis from our Victim Assistance Center, and one other person that's part of this team that's working on consumer protection is Gina Buchanan, who couldn't be here today. So we're going to take some turns talking. We'll start with Lucky. Thank you.
Thanks,
There is a
Stephanie.
microphone too, Lucky, if you need it.
Let me know if I'm not being loud enough. I don't have to be at a mic. I'm not a big podium guy, but I like walking around and talking and doing my presentations that style. The other thing that I do prefer doing as well is keeping the presentations more fluid, more of a conversation. I did prepare a PowerPoint, but I don't need to rely on it necessarily. If there's questions from the floor, go ahead and ask them. Don't hold them till the end. Don't feel like you're being rude. Shout them out, even if you don't feel like raising your hand. Ask questions, totally okay. I don't mind at all. I think Mike's exactly the same way. We want more of a conversation style. So, the Consumer Protection Unit. Not a lot of people have heard of the Consumer Protection Unit in Shasta County, and frankly, not a lot of people actually knew it ever existed. We've had this Consumer Protection Unit in our office for quite some time, and we are one of the only, north of Sacramento, only Yolo County has a Consumer Protection Unit at their district attorney's office. So it's quite a testament for the leadership at our office to have the foresight to ensure that we have this type of unit in our county. It's important because we prosecute corporations and businesses that violate the law. And without a unit like this, those crimes or those violations could go unprosecuted. So it's a really good thing, and we're very fortunate in Northern California to really be the only county that has a unit like this. It's an important unit in our office. I don't handle the DUI or the homicide type cases, but it's an important role for our local county to ensure protection of the consumers as an element of public safety. It also deals with the compliance of the law. And what that means is we want to protect honest businesses that comply with the law. Somebody who's breaking the law should not profit at the expense of somebody who's not. Or the law follower shouldn't be missing out on profits since they're not breaking the rules. That's just not fair.
What about, excuse me,
Yes.
what about us? When we get taken, what happens to us?
And that's a part of what we do as well. And that's why the first item up there is the protection of the consumers. As part of every case, we try, as part of the prosecution, these are often civil cases. They take a lot longer than a criminal case. We try to make an effort of stopping the bad behavior, that's first and foremost, and punishing the bad behavior, but restitution is an element, that the loss to the consumers, that they're restored for any of their losses. I'm not a class action attorney. Any type of resolution or prosecution, our office is not being incentivized by it in any capacity. When we seek a prosecution, the money is meant to penalize the offender to make sure it doesn't happen again, and to send a message to the rest of the businesses who might be doing the same thing to not be doing it either. And part of the penalties that we seek very often is restitution to consumers. I'll give an example with the Reading Inn case just most recently. With the Reading Inn case, restitution wasn't really clear. How are we going to benefit people who may have stayed there? How much were their losses? How much is the loss to the members of our county in the downtown neighborhood? And it's not easily identifiable. So what they have in the law is something called side prey restitution. Side prey restitution tries to restore, in some other capacity, someone else to ensure that those who had a loss are somehow restored in some capacity. As part of that settlement with the Reading Inn, we structured it so $12,500 went to the RPD NPU unit so that they can continue their efforts in the downtown and the hilltop neighborhoods of enforcement to help restore those in those areas to get a sense of restitution. Does that make sense? So we have a few avenues of enforcement. Like I mentioned, typically the cases we file in the Consumer Protection Unit are civil prosecutions, and that surprises people that the DA's office can file a civil case. But that's how we typically, the law has authority for the DA's office to bring these types of cases under, in the civil court, besides just criminally. However, we can bring criminal violations against a company as well. It's up to the discretion of our office which way we're going to go. Is it going to be a criminal prosecution or a civil prosecution? Now, just quickly going over the difference. A civil case is quite a bit different in the sense that the standard of proof is much lower than in a criminal case. In a criminal case, everybody's always heard beyond reasonable doubt. Well, in a civil case, the burden of proof is preponderance of evidence, which means more likely than not. Which way is the scale going to be tipped? In the civil case as well, in a prosecution by the district attorney's office, the defendant doesn't have a right to counsel and typically no right to a jury trial. There's also a longer statute of limitations. Obviously, all those are different in a criminal case. I'm going to quickly just kind of go over the law just because it's kind of a unique type of prosecution, so I just want to touch on the authority that allows us to bring these types of cases. We have two main components. Obviously, there's many more laws besides the two that are listed there that we utilize, but those are the two big umbrella statutes we use. The first one is Business and Professions Code 17200, which is an unlawful business practice, which is anything that violates the law is an unlawful business practice. We also use false advertising. So if a company is advertising and making false claims, that's the other umbrella statute we use. 17500 false advertising is the criminal statute as well. We can bring that as a misdemeanor. However, there is no criminal sanction for unlawful business practice. Just going over the 17200 unlawful business practice, it has three main components. I'm not going to go into too much detail except this one slide about it. It's something that's unlawful, which means it's violating the law. Something that's unfair, and unfair is kind of a weird term, but I'm not going to go into it in this presentation. Or fraudulent. Something that's a fraudulent business practice is also a violation of the law. I've got this slide here for false advertising. You see the individual with his license plate of "I'm sexy." So we got anything that is a statement that's likely to mislead members of the public can be false advertising. What's important about both these statutes, or this, false advertising is that buyer beware. You often hear, well, shouldn't the buyer just beware? Well, that's not the law in California. There's no duty upon the public to have to trust what somebody's saying when they're advertising. They shouldn't be allowed to lie. That doesn't allow them to escape responsibility under the law, just because the buyer should beware. And once you relay a false statement, it can't be remedied by a subsequent disclosure with fine print or some strange, fast verbiage in an advertisement. We don't need identifiable victims when it's brought by the district attorney's office. Only class action and private attorneys need identifiable victims. And I wanted to point out, false advertising, it does not apply to political campaigns. Now, one thing I do want to mention, a public statement or a false advertisement of some kind, it can be anything. It can be a menu. It can be a tag on a piece of luggage. There's an important case that's kind of the pivotal case. It was "Labels Matter" is kind of the slogan of the case. And what it dealt with was there was some luggage being sold by a store where they had a tag that said "Made in USA." Now, for a lot of us, that's an important message. We're more likely to buy a product because it's made in the USA. Well, the consumers found out, and it was found out that the product wasn't actually made in the USA. It was made overseas, so the tag was false. Now, the defense attorneys for this company had explained, well, there's no actual loss to the consumer. They wanted a piece of luggage. They got a piece of luggage. They didn't really lose anything, and it's not that big of a deal that it wasn't made in the USA. They didn't buy it because it was made in the USA. They just wanted a piece of luggage. Fortunately, the courts held against that argument because labels do matter. In some cases, like this one, Made in USA, was so important that it was a false advertising message that they were affixing to their bags. Now, one of my favorite movies, false advertising versus puffing. Some of you may or may not have heard of the word puffing. It's just an exaggerated claim. So in the movie Elf, there's a big sign that says "World's Greatest Coffee." That you can say a message like that. That's just meant to be puffing. That this is the best car ever. This is the best sandwich ever. That's not false advertising. That's just deemed puffing. Some remedies. The remedies of any civil prosecution or consumer protection prosecution. The first is an injunction. Now, an injunction means that you're stopping somebody from doing something. You're imposing some certain guidelines or rules against them. Most recently, since I imagine most people are familiar, since it made some headlines with the Reading case. So there was a long list of injunctive compliance measures that were imposed against them. If we're bringing it as a criminal case, jail is an option. Recovery of cost, that's an important part of any consumer protection prosecution. Recovery of cost means we keep track of how much and how long we spent on the case, and we make every effort to get that reimbursed so that the taxpayers aren't at a loss for investigating the case. Restitution to victims, just as the gentleman had asked, is also an element of part of our settlement or a judgment. And then the other big part about what we seek are civil penalties. Civil penalties are a way to financially punish a company that's breaking the rules. And that's up to $2,500 for every violation. Now, if I have false advertising and unfair or unlawful business practice, that can jump up to $5,000 per violation. With a 4-year statute of limitations, that can be a tremendous amount of penalties, and it can really impact a company if they're breaking the rules. I've only got a few more slides. I want to make sure I leave some time for the chief to have a few words as well. How do these cases start? So they're not as typical like most of the cases in our office. We don't get them necessarily always from law enforcement just through a police report. Sometimes they come in from law enforcement. Sometimes they come in from other agencies who refer them to us at the state level or the local level. Other ways we receive them are through people like you, the citizens of our community filing a complaint form with our office. You can find that complaint form on our website. We conduct our preliminary investigation after receiving a complaint if it's appropriate to investigate. We make contact with the company. At that time, we can make a determination. Do we want to seek an immediate settlement if they're cooperative? Or do we want to just proceed to litigation and file a lawsuit against the company if it seems that they're going to be uncooperative? We, in every case, if settlement or by trial, we seek a judgment. We don't do confidential settlements, ever. I know a lot of companies prefer that or would like that, but that is not what any county will be doing as part of a consumer protection prosecution. They are always public judgments. Some examples of the types of cases that we've prosecuted. Could be a scanner violation. A company repeatedly charging more at the register than the price marked for the product. About a year ago, we had that going on with Kohl's, where it was it's not just a one-off, it's repeated, continued, despite repeated warnings of violations, where they're charging more. The product is labeled for $1, they're charging you $1.50. It's quick to miss for the consumer who may not be able to catch it on the scanner. An important part of that is also that these companies know that this is occurring. They keep track of all their details quite meticulously, but if it's undercharging, you know they're going to be correcting that problem quickly. So if there's overcharging, it is something that we can prosecute. Any type of false or misleading advertising with diet supplements, sales prices, or auto sales. There's also misleading packaging, unlicensed businesses who are required to have a license but don't, but are continuing to do business nonetheless. Unlicensed practice of law. It could be enforcement of city codes or county codes. Under the law, we can prosecute under anything. It doesn't need to be under the Business and Professions Code. Any violation of the law, any violation of any law, local, county, state, or even federal, can be brought by us. Selling of counterfeit goods, there's a multiple variety of types of cases we can bring. We can also bring these types of cases simultaneously. And what that means is if we can bring a criminal case at the same time as a civil case as well. That's rarely done, but it's permissible under the law. Some of the successful cases that we've had, Overstock.com, we successfully obtained judgment after trial with 7 other counties. That is still pending appeal, but we are confident that we will prevail at that point as well. They were, for their false advertising claims made on their website, they were imposed a $6.8 million judgment. Cisco Foods, that was about 2 years ago, they were also hit with a $20 million judgment. Kohl's, which I briefly mentioned a bit ago. Locally, Shasta Properties, that was about 2.5 to 3 years ago, was a property management company continuously operating a property management company without a license, despite repeated, continuous warnings. And we had no alternative but to prosecute them. There was a local pawn shop that was failing to hold and produce upon law enforcement demand items which were pawned, and that's required of them under the law. Since that filing and since we obtained a judgment against that company, there have been no significant problems. And then most recently, the Ready Knit. So ultimately, it comes down to compliance of the law. We seek punishment to get deterrence through injunctive terms. So besides prosecution, community education, like we're doing here today, is a major part of what we do. We issue out fraud alerts, we do presentations, and we do events and programs like our recent fraud prevention fair. So kind of the motto within our unit is, our best weapon against scammers is a well-informed community. I'm going to pass it over to Mike, who's going to take over the latter part of the presentation with the last few slides.
Hi, my name is Mike Baxter, and I'm what's called an investigative technician. Basically, I'm a retired guy that after 10 years of being retired, I have to admit I was getting a little bored. So I came back to the district attorney's office, to the very unit that I had worked in when I was a full-time DA investigator. So, and this is the first time I've ever done this, so bear with me because Joe Henricks, the guy who's really good at this, isn't here today. Anyway, a few of the common scams that we deal with all the time are identity theft, telemarketing fraud, and mail and internet fraud. And usually most of these cases originate from the public to our office via me by way of a phone call. And trust me, my phone rings 10 to 15 times a day on a couple of days a week that I'm there. So this stuff is going on all over the place.
Backwards.
Oh, I went backwards? Like I said, I've never done this before. Forward. For identity theft, some of the warning signs are things that just make common sense. All of a sudden your bank account's overdrawn and you didn't overdraw it. Mail you were expecting doesn't arrive. Usually things that's related to financial matters, and I can attest to this since my daughter was just the victim of this. Somebody broke into one of the cluster mailboxes and happened to get her new Target card and the PIN number and charged $2,700 in 2 days on her Target card. One of the things that you need to be aware of right about now is if you're not getting your property tax statements, that's a clue. Something's going on. So be careful. And if you all of a sudden are applying for a credit card and you're getting denied, you wonder why when you know you have good credit. A lot of times people can assume your identity, steal your credit, and you won't even know until all of a sudden you're either denied or you go to use a credit card and it's declined. But this stuff happens all the time. Be very, very careful with your financial information. Some of the things we can do to prevent identity theft: carry a close-fitting purse. I mean, any one of you, if you walk through Safeway, and you'll see people swinging their purse out like this. That's crazy. Someone's going to snag that purse and run. And once that purse is snagged, it's got your name, address, phone number, social security number, most likely inside that purse. Very quickly they can create a new ID. Reduce the items that you carry in public. You don't need 5, 6, 7 credit cards. You don't need to be walking around with that much stuff because you can lose it, it can be taken, and when you're the victim of identity theft, and nowadays a lot of us all have our certain favorite credit cards that we charge everything to, including our daily expenses, all of our bills, because of course we're getting travel points and we like to fly or whatever the case may be. When you have every single thing tied to a credit card and you are the victim of identity theft, it is a major hassle to reorganize your entire life. So just be careful. You don't need all those things with you when you're just going down to the store for a quick shopping trip. Don't display your credit cards. Don't wave them around. Be careful when you're at the stand, you know, running it in the machine. See who's watching, see who's looking. Just be generally aware of your surroundings. I don't go up to the money machines at banks anymore before I look both ways, like I'm crossing the street, for fear that I'm going to be counting out, you know, my weekly allowance for my wife, and maybe $20 if I'm lucky, and have someone come up and take it. This kind of stuff does happen. Shred all your mail that you get, all the free credit card offers, the free checks, shred them. And the best way to shred them is with a crosscut shredder. We will find bad guys who will dig through trash, and people have just shredded it where it ends up straight down. They piece it back together. Get your bank account numbers off it. Very easy to do. And when you have big bills, I just paid my property tax. I didn't stick it in the mailbox to go out. I dropped that off at the post office. I want to see it fall into that box because people will take stuff out of mailboxes, take your check, they got your account numbers, your routing numbers, anything like that. You don't need that stuff in the wrong person's hands. Just be careful. It's all about common sense and being careful. Might be a little more inconvenient to you, but it is way less inconvenient than being the victim of identity theft. On telemarketing fraud, I get these phone calls every day. How do people become victims? I believe that, and a lot of times it's elderly people who are calling me. They're getting these phone calls and they're wondering why they're being targeted. Well, first of all, the first time you answer a call from a scammer, you're on some kind of master list all of a sudden. That phone number has been identified as a good phone number, and they sell these lists. I call it the dark web. They sell it on parts of the internet that we don't have access to. And there are master lists out there with everybody's name and phone numbers on there, built by these people that call you, and when you answer the phone, they know you're legit. So now you're on a list. So now you're going to start getting all kinds of scam calls. Don't worry about being rude. Hang up. If you have caller ID and you don't know the number, hang up. If it's important enough, they'll leave a message on your machine. Never, ever, ever did you win a lottery that you did not play. Ever. And never, ever, ever to get the money from that lottery that you didn't really play, you don't have to pay money up front to get that money. I had, before I retired and did consumer fraud, I had a stack of letters on my desk. I used to collect them. That was about that high. And every one of them was a legitimate looking, real check that somebody had sent to somebody. And the storyline was always the same. You've won $50 million. Now remember, this is a lottery that you didn't play, so I don't know how you could have won it, but you won $50 million. Take this $5,000 check down to the bank. Cash it, please. Send us $3,000 for your taxes, and we'll mail you your $50 million. And oh, by the way, keep the other $2,000 just as part of your prize. And people did it every day. And people cashed those checks. They got the money. They mail the money to somebody. They keep the $2,000, and the next thing you know, your bank's calling you saying you're overdrawn by $5,000. It happens all the time. In fact, I just had a phone call last week, and we'll probably get to this in the scans, but I don't want to forget about it, where an elderly woman received a phone call and said, I have your grandson in jail. Well, which grandson? Is it Billy? Maybe Billy gets in trouble every now and then. I don't know. But all of a sudden it was, yeah, I got Billy. I want $15,000 for bail money. Honest to God, people, this woman mailed $15,000 cash by UPS to a bank account back east. Now, normally what happens is that bank account back east was only open for this one scam. Once the money's received, it's gone, or it's automatically transferred from that bank account to a foreign country, and that money is gone. Okay? Has anybody ever gotten that phone call? Has anybody gotten a phone call from the IRS that you're going to jail because you owe back taxes? Okay. They're out there. Please be aware that they're out there. And most of these places, most of these things are generating from outside the United States, and unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do. Anybody on the phone ever tells you you have to make a decision right now or the deal's no longer good? The deal's no good to begin with, just hang up. And the bottom one is, if you're on the list, you're on the list. You have a couple choices. Just don't ever answer your phone if you don't know who it is. That's why caller ID is good. Or, I just found out with my phone company, Charter, because I keep getting these phone calls to donate money to some police benefit, which, excuse me, Chief, but it's bogus, it's not real. You can Google the number. You guys know that? You can just Google a phone number that shows up on your caller ID, and you'll find all kinds of Google listings of, this is a fraud, they called me 8 times, blah, 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 blah. But I found out with Charter, you can just log onto your account, go into the phone section, and you can add that phone number. And from this point forward, anytime that someone calls from that phone number, Charter's system will say, this phone call will not be accepted. Click. I don't know if you can do that with AT&T. I believe you can. But check with your local phone companies if you have services other than Charter or AT&T, because it's a great way to stop getting some of these calls. But trust me, they'll just reroute them, and 2 days later they're getting a call from probably another number, because they generate these phone numbers quicker than you can block them. Never talk to strangers on the phone. Well, we tell our kids that. Now I'm telling you guys that. If you don't know who they are, don't engage them in a conversation. Voicemail, caller ID, never, ever, ever, and believe me, it happens daily. Don't give anybody who calls you any kind of credit information on the phone, bank account information. I don't care if it's your bank calling you to tell you there's a problem, because con artists will do that. They will actually study you. A lot of you people put too much information on Facebook. They can verify who you are, who your kids' names are, do a little research on you, find out where you bank, and they can call you and they say you're from your bank. And your account's overdrawn. We need this information from you to clear everything up. No legitimate organization will ever ask for valuable financial or identifying information over the phone. If you're confused because you think it might be your bank, simply hang up, pick up the phone, call the number that you know is a legitimate number for your bank, and ask them, did you just call me asking for a bunch of financial information? They do not do that. And also you can sign up for the Do Not Call registry, or last is change your phone number. If you're really, really getting lots of these calls, it's because you may have engaged these scammers and now you're on the this is a real person list. Last alternative is to possibly change your phone number, but most people don't like to do that because a lot of us have had the same phone number for 30, 40 years.
Ooh, did you go back?
Oh, well, that's a quickie. I gotta figure that one out. Uh-oh. There we go. And just one other thing. I have brochures at my office. You can always call. I'm there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But I have pamphlets on how to get yourself off the junk mail list, like all the magazine subscriptions that show up that you don't really want. Now, I will tell you that it's valuable information, and it does work, but I have done that for myself, and we still get stuff. I don't know how it ends up coming to the house, but it still does, but it does decrease the amount of stuff you get. So if anybody ever wants that, I can mail it to you, and there's some really good ways in there to put yourself in better positions not to become victims of fraud. We all ready? Just hang up. You can look up the actual company and call them. If you're ever unsure, and here's a perfect example. Recently, a large medical billing company back east was hacked. They have local businesses here in Reading that the company back east does the billing for. Last Tuesday alone, I had 4 people show up to my office with these letters saying, you're the victim of hacking, here is this information. We're going to provide you free credit monitoring for a year. Just sign up. Well, maybe what we do is actually beginning to work, because every one of these people were going, this can't be real. Nobody gives us anything for free. But it really was real. I called the local doctor's office who was listed on the company's parent website from back east, and she said, sure enough, our parent company was hacked, all of our billing information was taken. We are, through the parent company, offering free credit monitoring for a period of 1 year. So this sign-up offer was truly legitimate, but yet I had 4 people walk into the office on last Tuesday thinking that they were victims of some type of scam. Regarding the IRS scam phone calls, you can file your complaint online to IRS, but truly these are being generated from outside the United States. If you've ever mistakenly answered one, you can hear, it sounds like a big phone room in some dingy warehouse with a bunch of people talking all at once, and as soon as you say something, then they talk to you. And our office subscribes to a company called TLO, and it's a huge database where we can do research on cases we're working. We subscribe to the law enforcement side of this, and a couple of times I have checked the phone numbers through their database. I can just type in a phone number and it will tell me who it comes back to. They don't even show up. They're not real. You guys are all aware that somebody can call you, and with software that's available probably from the Apple Store or the Android phone store, you can spoof your phone numbers. I could call you and it would say I'm calling you from the White House. You will get calls like this because some of the calls where I've taken complaints, they're actually receiving calls from these scammers, but their caller ID says it's coming from the IRS. Be careful. IRS will never call you to tell you you're going to jail because you owe back taxes. How to stop this? The bottom line is don't fall for it. You don't get something for nothing. If you didn't play a lottery, you're not going to win a lottery. You're not some long distance relative of a deceased king in Ethiopia who left you $1 trillion. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. If you ever have questions as to the legitimacy of one of these things you get in the mail, just call me. Or always revert to the internet. You can Google just about anything and something will come up. And as long as you're dealing with a legitimate website, Department of Consumer Affairs, U.S. Attorney's Office, something like that, you can read about most of these. You'll find out that they're not legit. But just be careful or ask questions. And the same, if you've never, blah, 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 don't give in to temptation. I know that we all kind of wish that, we would have won that Powerball when it was $1 billion. That would have been really sweet. But that doesn't really happen to most all of us. So don't give in to temptation. One guy's getting away. Anyway, mine was very short and sweet because the chief has some information for you. But do you guys have any questions at all? Yes, sir.
Well, I wonder if all these political calls we get, is there any problem with those?
Well, there could be. We've been hearing that some of these campaign contributions may be fake. The best way to know is to visit that candidate. If you're really desiring to make a contribution, their candidate's website, and make a contribution through there rather than over the phone, because too often it's not a legitimate solicitation.
You will find that a lot of the scam calls are centered around big events. Tax time, property tax time, elections. That's when they seem to call or seem to get about. So just always be careful. Again, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to call the district attorney's office.
I actually got one of those checks in the mail, like $800. I can't remember who it was from or what it said, but when somebody gets a fraudulent check like that, do you just recommend ripping it up or bringing it to the police, or what's the best?
Either or. I keep them for a collection. I'm restarting my collections. I've only been back now for a few months, so I'm restarting my collections. But yeah, you just
tear it up. It's not something you guys need to see to pursue anything or.
They are happening every day of the week,
Yeah.
365 days a year, 1,000 times a day. It's just mind-boggling. But all they have to get is 2 or 3 people a day to fall for that, and they're making a pretty good living. Yes, ma'am.
I had like 3 calls telling me that my computer is.
Oh, that's another one.
Yes.
Microsoft doesn't call you out of the clear blue sky to tell you that there's a problem with your computer. Be very, very careful with that, because if you fall for that, what they will do is they will walk you through steps. They will have you do something with your keyboard where they implant what's called a keystroke inside of your machine. And then they sit back in whatever foreign country they're in, and they monitor your computer activity. And then when you decide a week later to log on to Amazon.com and buy something, and you input your credit card, they're following your keystrokes. They now know your credit card number, your passwords, your, the little 4-digit code they always ask you for on your credit card. Microsoft is never going to, out of the clear blue sky, know that you're having a problem with your credit card or your computer. Just, it's kind of sad to say this, but it's almost to the point where we just almost don't trust anybody who calls us out of the clear blue sky. If you have a problem with your computer, you're calling a tech support to somebody you are familiar with.
Other questions?
Actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I actually had two. I'm on the do not call registry and have been for years, and I know it has to be renewed every 5 years, but people don't honor that at all.
You can let the Department of Consumer Affairs, there is a reporting agency at the state and I think at the federal level as well. The challenge is finding these individuals. They're incredibly challenging to identify. So
I just think it's important to realize that it's not infallible.
it's not infallible, but it helps.
And the other question was, Mike, you mentioned that there was a way for us to get off the junk mail list.
Well, but that's not infallible either, because I have done all of that and I still get stuff. But yes, if you can always call the district attorney's office. I work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Call, ask for me, and I will gladly mail you that stuff.
Paper mail?
Yeah. Well, I can also scan it and send it to you as a PDF file.
We're all being very careful about technology today. Thank you.
So a comment and a question. Comment is, Lucky started his presentation, and I think that's true. A lot of people don't know what the district attorney's office does in this area, but they're very vigorous and they've done a lot of good things for the community. So just want to applaud the city council and the entire team. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
My question is, your opinion, I guess, about the value of some of the credit monitoring, credit protection services, LifeLock, all that kind of stuff. Is that worth the money? Or is it a...
Well, I personally don't make the habit of endorsing or any sort of those companies, but what I can say is there's a lot, they have their place, they can be helpful, but there's a lot of stuff you can do on your own for free. So you can monitor your own credit card, you can keep an eye yourself, you can monitor your own bank account, you cannot fall for some of these scams that we described, and I think that alone is going to go a long way. So they do have their place, and I don't want to say yes or no. Either way, I just don't make a habit of doing that with those companies, but they have their place, but you can do much of it yourself for free.
You can also run a free credit check on yourself once a year. That's always a good way to find out what's truly going on with your credit.
I have something to say. I opened up an Amazon credit card, and I did it myself, and I just got off the phone, and LifeLock called me.
Sure.
And they said, did you just open up and so they do watch.
They do watch. Yeah. Ma'am?
Mine is more what you were talking about, business fraud.
Sure.
Because I had a situation, something was stolen in a pawn shop. We were never notified when it was released from the police department. Went in to check on it, and the pawn shop had sold half of it. And
What was it?
several guns.
Guns. We'll chat some more later about
Okay,
it.
that's what I'm
Because
wondering
there's a holding period for pawn shops for certain
Right.
items, and that's
Right.
one of those items that have the.
And I didn't know that this was kept, because I mean, we were living, these were, family heirlooms that had been passed down through generations.
Sure.
And they were just so.
Well, with this one particular pawn shop, we haven't had the problem again, but I'd be curious if it was recently and it's the same pawn shop that we
And it
dealt
wasn't
with.
recently, it's been a few years, but doing this now, because I'm out there as an advocate, going, don't do this, something's on check. But to know that you have this, and I wish I would have known, I would have come back to you then, because they told us, oh, we're sorry, so it's gone, we're done with your life.
Next time, give us a call.
I'm going to.
Two quick items. Were there any other questions before I pass it off?